He ran out of his own house at full speed after a single phone call. His wife's friend, sitting in the kitchen, watched him sprint past her without a word. 8 days later, his body was found 3 blocks away. He was inside a locked hotel, on the floor of an unused conference room, lying beneath a hole in the roof that was almost exactly his shape. His name was Rey Rivera. He was 32 years old. And almost 20 years later, no one can explain how he got up there. Or why. Rey was a former water polo player. 6'5", athletic, charismatic. He had played professionally in Spain after college, then come home to coach high school swimming and water polo in Burbank, California. He was good at it. In the year 2000, he helped guide a girls' team to a 25-6 record and a deep playoff run. The kids loved him. So did everyone else who met him. By every account, he was warm, funny, deeply religious, and devoted to his wife Allison. They had moved across the country to start a new chapter of their lives. That chapter was Baltimore. Rey had a longtime friend named Porter Stansberry. Porter ran a financial newsletter publishing company called Stansberry and Associates Investment Research, a subsidiary of a much larger publisher called Agora. The company sold investment advice to subscribers. Rey was hired on as a writer and videographer. He was talented at both. He was, by his own admission, doing the best work of his life. He and Allison had bought a beautiful old house in the Northwood neighborhood. They were trying for a baby. But in the spring of 2006, something began to change. The alarm system at the Rivera's house went off in the middle of the night. Twice. On separate occasions. Allison would later say her husband was clearly frightened. That was not normal for him. Rey was a man who walked into rooms first, who handled problems, who kept his composure. Whatever he thought was happening, he did not tell her. He did not go to the police. He stayed quiet, and he stayed afraid. There was a reason for that. We just don't know what it was. On the evening of May 16, 2006, Rey was at home. Allison was on a business trip. A houseguest named Claudia, a colleague of Allison's, was staying with them. Around 6 in the evening, the phone rang. Rey answered it. The call lasted only seconds. Then he hung up, grabbed his keys, ran out the door, and got into his wife's Chevy Tahoe. He didn't take his wallet. He didn't say where he was going. He didn't say he would be back. Claudia watched him peel out of the driveway. That was the last time anyone saw Rey Rivera alive. Allison reported him missing the next day. The police began searching. Family flew in. Friends made flyers. Days passed with nothing. Then, almost a week into the search, his older brother and a few friends got a tip. Rey's wife's Tahoe had been spotted in a parking lot in the Mount Vernon neighborhood, about 3 blocks from the Stansberry offices. They drove down. They found the car. And from the top of the parking garage next to it, looking across a few rooftops, one of them noticed something strange. There was a hole in the lower roof of the Belvedere Hotel. The Belvedere is a 13-story building from 1903. In 2006, the upper floors had been converted into condominiums. The lower floors still housed a few businesses. Family members called police. Police entered the unused second-floor conference room beneath the hole. And there, on the carpet, partially decomposed in the May heat, was Rey Rivera. The injuries on his body were catastrophic. Rib fractures. Broken shins. Punctured lungs. Lacerations consistent with a long fall from a great height. The official theory, almost from the first day, was that Rey had jumped from the top of the Belvedere, somewhere around the 11th floor, and crashed through the lower roof. The Baltimore Police Department ruled the death a probable suicide. But that wasn't the strangest part. Because almost nothing about that scene actually fit the official theory. And the longer investigators looked, the worse it got. Start with the body. The hole in the roof was Rey's shape, but it was small. Police could not find a clear line of sight from any window or ledge that would have produced the angle of impact. Rey's family pointed out that he had a known fear of heights. He did not jump from rooftops. He did not climb fences. He was the man who held the camera when other people climbed the fence. Then there were the items found on the roof. On top of the Belvedere, separate from the hole, police recovered Rey's cell phone, his eyeglasses, and his flip-flops. They were undamaged. Sitting neatly. Rey himself, who had supposedly fallen from somewhere even higher, was a wreck of broken bones below. But the lightweight objects he had supposedly carried with him were intact. People who jump from buildings do not arrive at the rooftop carefully, take off their glasses, set down their phone, kick off their flip-flops, and then leap. That is not a thing that happens. Then there was the note. After Rey had been missing for a few days, Allison searched his home office. Hidden behind his computer monitor, taped to the back, was a folded piece of paper. She unfolded it. What she read did not sound like her husband. The note listed the names of public figures and Hollywood directors. Stanley Kubrick. Steven Spielberg. References to specific movies, including The Game and Eyes Wide Shut. Quotations from Freemason rituals. References to people Rey wanted to bring back, older people he had loved, younger people he wanted to be there. It read, to Allison, like a wish list. It read like fragments of something only Rey understood. The FBI later analyzed it. Their conclusion was clear. The note was not suicidal in nature. It was not a goodbye. It was something else. Something coded. Something the Bureau could not crack and Allison could not explain. There was one detail the police never released to the public, and to this day, that note has never been fully decoded. Then there was the detective. Michael Bayer was a veteran of the Baltimore Police Department. He worked Rey's case for 3 weeks. He believed, immediately, that the scene had been arranged. He used the word staged. He said the hole in the roof, the placement of the items, the geometry of the body, the missing wallet, the brevity of the phone call, none of it added up to a man who had killed himself. 3 weeks into the investigation, Detective Bayer was reassigned. He never worked the case again. The reasons given have never been satisfying to anyone outside the department. Then there was the phone call itself. The records were eventually pulled. The last call Rey received before sprinting out of his own house came from the main switchboard of Agora Publishing, the parent company of Stansberry, the place where Rey worked. But the switchboard could not, or would not, identify which extension placed the call. Porter Stansberry himself later said it was impossible. He said that everyone in his company who had worked closely with Rey was on a corporate retreat on Maryland's eastern shore that night. Whoever placed that call from inside Agora Publishing on May 16, 2006, they have never identified themselves. 20 years later. Despite repeated public pleas from Rey's wife, his brother, and the producers of Unsolved Mysteries, that person has never come forward. And there is one more piece. After Rey's body was found, after his computers were taken into evidence, the Baltimore Police Department began receiving phone calls. Repeated calls. From an unidentified person. The caller asked, very specifically, about the status of Rey's computers. When they would be released. Whether they could be retrieved. Whether anything had been recovered from them. The caller never identified themselves. The caller never explained their interest. Whoever it was, they wanted those computers, and they wanted them badly enough to keep calling a homicide unit about them. Rey had been working on a project before he died. Some accounts say it was a documentary about life insurance fraud. Other accounts say it was something larger, something involving the financial industry his employer was part of. At the time of his death, Porter Stansberry was being sued by the United States Securities and Exchange Commission for what the agency called deliberate fraud. In 2007, the year after Rey died, Stansberry lost that case. He was fined $1.5 million. The court found that he had knowingly made false statements to sell investment newsletters. When Netflix's Unsolved Mysteries reboot featured Rey's case in 2020, Porter Stansberry declined to be interviewed. He told producers that his company advised employees not to speak to the press. He had previously told reporters that Rey had been in therapy and had psychological problems. Allison and everyone else interviewed for the show flatly rejected that. None of Rey's family, friends, or doctors recognized the man Stansberry described. 20 years on, the official ruling remains undetermined. Not suicide. Not homicide. The Baltimore Police Department lists the death as a probable suicide. The medical examiner refused to commit. Rey's family has spent every year since trying to find out what really happened. Detective Bayer still believes the scene was staged. The note has never been decoded. The caller has never come forward. The strange interest in Rey's computers has never been explained. And the man who built a career writing about unsolved disappearances and forgotten cases ended up becoming one himself. If this stayed with you, you may want to watch our episode on Eliza Lam, another impossible death inside a hotel, with security footage that has never been explained. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. I cover the cases the world forgot.